back to Southern Secrets. I'm Laura.
And I'm Danny.
So, on tonight's episode, this will be episode 2 of the disappearance of Summer Wells. Now, we did have a previous video that was posted, kind of just dipping our toes into the water of this case because when we say that this has so many twists and turns, like that's not an understatement. I wish it was, but it's truly not. Don't you agree?
I 100% agree. This case
It's
has so many twists and turns. And I want to say I know who's responsible or what, but I can't because every time I think it's one person, it ends up something else is twisting and
exactly.
turning.
Exactly. And that does bring up a good point. So, one thing with this case is there are a lot of online speculation, a lot of just back and forth, like between locals and people that are, around very close to that case. Let's just say that. And so, one thing that we want to make sure that we try and do is to make sure that we present fact. Now, there will be a time in another episode where we do start diving into theories, but as always, we are not legal professionals. We are armchair investigators and best friends who like to sit here and do deep dives into things and discuss the such. So, and again, at this point in time, no one has ever been charged with anything. So, again, we are just presenting facts. So I just wanted to get that out of the way.
All of this is
So,
allegedly, supposedly.
yeah, allegedly, supposedly, maybe, possibly. So nobody, everybody calm down. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. We're just reading information that is free to the public.
That's right.
So, y'all, if you're ready, we're ready.
I'm
We
ready.
have, let me see, as of 8:22 p.m., there are 18 pages of research that has been collected. So grab your pen, paper, and whatever makes you feel warm and fuzzy, and let's dive in, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll just do a quick recap. So again, this is a case of an active Amber Alert missing child, and her full name is Summer Moon Utah Wells. Her age at the time of disappearance was 5, and she has been missing since June 15th, 2021. The location and roundabout area of where she went missing is Ben Hill Road, which is also commonly known as the Beach Creek community, which is Hawkins County, Tennessee. As of today, she is still missing. There have been no arrests and no publicly named suspects, and this is still an active investigation. So again, she vanished from her home, which is in a very rural area in East Tennessee, on June 15th of 2021. And what began as a missing child search became one of the most heavily discussed unsolved cases in Tennessee. But the facts are limited and the rumors are endless. And 5 years later, the question remains the same. How does a 5-year-old disappear from a rural home surrounded by family, dogs, woods, and neighbors without any confirmed trace? So, the TBI, which is the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, has described this as one of the most exhaustive and involved missing child cases they have ever investigated. They have said all possibilities remain open and they continue, to work with the FBI and local law enforcement within Hawkins County, meaning the sheriff's office. Summer herself was described as a 5-year-old girl with blonde hair and blue eyes, and at the time she disappeared, she was approximately 3 feet tall and around 40 pounds. And early reports said she was wearing gray pants, a pink shirt, and was believed to be barefoot. But one detail that became heavily discussed was her hair. Summer's hair had been cut very short before she disappeared. Her mother, Candace Wells, has publicly said Summer wanted it cut short and wanted hair like her brother's. So law enforcement has never publicly said the haircut or anything is evidence of a crime. But they did have to go back and update the pictures, which now reflect, you know, both short hair and longer hair. You can still find those images. So again, she disappeared from the 100 block area of Ben Hill Road, which is near Rogersville, Tennessee. And the reason why we, go over this is this area matters because it's a rural, wooded, and difficult terrain environment, and homes are very spread out. The roads are very narrow. And so the Wells home sat off the roadway, and the area did not have any kind of like camera coverage, as you would expect in a subdivision, which I can relate to because a lot of cameras, they do run off of cell service, and a lot of areas do not have that. So if you do not have Wi Fi or the capability to have Wi Fi reach to where your cameras are placed, they're not going to work. So investigators have obviously asked residents in that area and community to check security cameras and their trail cameras, but nothing has ever really come of it. But what's really interesting, and one thing that we want to dive in first and foremost, is the timeline. Now, the public timeline comes mostly from family statements and law enforcement releases. So we would like to jump into that and kind of go over it because again, this is a lot of information to digest. But I think even with how much information is here, you all will start eventually seeing what we're talking about when we say it takes twists and turns left and right. So, Summer reportedly spent part of the day with her mother, Candace Wells, and her grandmother, which the grandmother also goes by Grandis. I don't know. I don't know. It reminds me of Krampus. I don't know. That's just my opinion, and I'm uncomfortable, and sometimes that happens, and it is what it is. I'm sure she's a sweet lady. Anyway, public accounts describe the day as including errands and going to a swimming hole and later time at home. According to the family's version, though, Summer was outside planting flowers with her mother and grandmother. Now, Don Wells, he is her father. Okay. And he later stated that Summer came back inside and went downstairs to play in the basement with her toys. Now, I want everybody to remember this. Okay. That right there. That's what Don said. Now, a short time later, Candace came in and asked where Summer was. The family says they called for her and went downstairs, and then they discovered she was gone. So now this is where we're going to start digging into timelines and dates. So she was reported missing around 6:30 p.m. on June 15th of 2021. And so searchers then started combing that area in and around the home throughout the night. At 12:07 a.m. is when an endangered child alert and or, that's not an Amber Alert yet. That's just, hey, we got something going on. So that was at 12:07 a.m. on June 16th. Later that day, at around 1 p.m., it was then upgraded to an Amber Alert. This is a full blown. This child is gone. We have this is serious, and that's the one that they blast out on everybody's phones. TBI said early on that day they did not know where Summer was. So then the investigation quickly split into two parts. So a physical search and then an investigation into how she disappeared. So then by June 18th, more than 100 trained professionals from 41 law enforcement agencies were then involved. By June 21st, 72 agencies from multiple states had searched 2,400 acres. On June 25th, investigators asked for help in finding a red Tacoma truck that might be a witness in this case, not a suspect, a witness. But the police have not said that they've ever been able to locate and or get in touch with this individual. By June 27th, officials said that 1,150 ground searches had logged 13,800 hours and covered 4.6 square miles, and it searched approximately 3,000 acres. That's huge. That's a lot. That's crazy. But
Actually, insane amount of searched. Okay, I'm going back.
but then 2 days later, the search was then scaled back. And so I was like, why would you do that? Like, if you have, like, and I understand this is a lot of people, that's a lot of hours, but then I was like, why would you do that? So then I, we started looking into that a little further. So the TBI told reporters that they had over 500 leads in the case to this point, and they scaled back the active search in the weeks following. Okay. Because the initial exhaustive ground and air operations had covered the entire surrounding terrain without yielding any physical evidence and or scent trails. Now, I didn't see anything stating anything about the weather, or that's probably something, that we should probably look into, but nothing said that they had, like, the Dennis Martin case that we covered
Hmm.
where was pouring down rain. So no scent trail. That's crazy.
There has to be something if she wandered off,
Yeah.
by foot at the back
Hmm.
door.
Hmm. But we want to make sure that people understand too that scaling back, like things like this, like physical searches, does not necessarily mean that it was dropped. It's just that they're changing, like, their focus. They're transitioning that then to, like cell phone data, or going through all of the tips that they received, and also looking into new leads. So it's more of a targeted search, that much like what was conducted in 2025 at Van Hill Road in nearby Greenville. So then we're going to go into July. Now, this was something that me and Danny we were not aware of.
Nope.
So this was our first little turn, okay? So in July, a private firm called EcuSearch, I hope I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize, came to Hawkins County to search for her. So, but like, the number of tips in this case then had reached more than 1,000, which is crazy. Now, I was like, who are these folks? Like, I've never heard of them. So I looked them up, and they're out of Texas, and it's a volunteer-based nonprofit search and recovery organization. And their sole mission is to find missing people, and they deploy specialized search methodologies across land, air, and water to assist families and law enforcement, and it's completely free of charge, which, that's amazing, because that's like a huge resource, and that's very costly. And the fact that they don't charge anybody for that is absolutely amazing, and I love that.
I agree.
So the founder of that organization is Tim Miller, and he founded that back in August of 2000. And the reason he created it was in 1984. He was devastated because his daughter was abducted, and eventually she lost her life due to this. She was only 16, and what gave me goosebumps was her name was Laura. And so that tragedy made him realize that there are so many families that are just left to search for their loved ones alone. And he was like, no, we're not doing that. I can't do that.
Wow.
So their headquarters are based in Dickinson, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. And, again, they rely only on volunteers, and they also have certified canine handlers and drone operators, and so on and so forth. Um, and again, they receive, like, nothing. It's entirely free of charge, and they receive no government funding. So hats off to him. If you all want to look into that again, that is EcuSearch. I hope I'm saying that right. It's EQUU and then search. Super cool thing to look into. But anyway, their role in that, okay, was that it was going to be like a multi-agency effort in the search. So in July of 2021, approximately 5 weeks after she went missing, the organization deployed specialized teams back to Hawkins County to launch a targeted search operation. And the volunteers, they of course navigated, like, extremely rugged and challenging terrain of East Tennessee using foot searchers, ATVs, drones, and mounted search teams on horseback. And they also too worked very close with local law enforcement, keeping all of their, search locations confidential to protect the integrity of the case that was ongoing with the TBI. So that was just kind of some information on them because I had no idea of that. And I was like, I want to, that's very interesting to me and is part of this. But then we're going to go, now we're in October. Now, Summer's father, Don, he was arrested for a DUI and he was held on a $5,750 bond and was released at 7:34 a.m. on October 31st, excuse me, according to Hawkins County. And there's like no other detailed really. It was kind of just really vague. The only thing that I could find was that the Wells family had posted a statement following his arrest on their blog, which is findsummerwells.com. And it basically said, "Thank you for the prayers. Thank you, everyone, for your kind messages. There are no words to what each day and night is like. We needed cigarettes." Okay. "It was a stupid decision. Please keep us in prayer. Keep Dawn. This pain won't go away. Thank you." Okay. All right. We're just going to go on to February. Let's just go on to February. We're on to February 4th. I'm so
I,
sorry, but I
I
just
was like, I got stopped too in my tracks. Like, wait, I'm sorry, but we needed cigarettes.
girl, they needed some cigarettes. They was like, we're down bad. Okay. I mean,
I'm not
I'm out
going
of,
without my cigarettes.
I gotta have my Virginia Slims, I mean, the menthols.
Extra
I get it.
slim.
Extra slim. I mean, I get it,
Extra.
but at the same
But
time, I don't think I would have put that in there. But anyways, we digress.
no. Okay.
So now
This
we're
is what
gonna
happened.
move. So what had happened was, so on February 4th of 2022, okay, that is going to be Summer's 6th birthday. But then a month later, okay, that same year, investigators, told everyone that the Wells family is no longer cooperating with their investigation. So I was like, hold up. We gotta listen, we gotta look into that. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you not want to be cooperative? Like your daughter's missing. Hello. So the investigators stated that the Wells family stopped cooperating with the authorities primarily because the parents had retained legal counsel. Um, and then in March 2022, Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson directly cited this legal representation when he announced that the family was not cooperating. Okay. So that's March. Now we're into June, June 15th, and that is the 1 year mark since her disappearance. And at that time, investigators had conducted more than 170 interviews from the tips they had received, which is crazy. My Lord, that's a lot of interviews. But then, also in June of that same year, a lawsuit was filed over the reward money in the case that was to be donated after 1 year if Summer had not been found. Now, here we go with the lawsuits. And this is crazy because this should not have to come to a lawsuit, but here we go.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm like, wait a minute, what?
We're starting to sue. We're Sue happy, Sue
We're
happy, Sue
so
happy.
happy. Okay, okay.
So here's the legal, okay, details behind this. So essentially, the reward account had amassed over $74,000, and that was essentially to encourage tips regarding her disappearance. But then, after the fund's designated time frame expired and she had not been found, then people were like, "Hey, you know, questions are coming up, and there's a lot of unverified claims of illegally raised and or misdirected funds." Mhm. So the defendants, so the rescue squad, they now that's like a specific entity, okay, placed the roughly $40,000 in dispute into the court and added Summer's parents, Don and Candace Wells, as well as donors and the Child Advocacy Center as defendants to ensure legal protection. Well, then we're going to fast forward a year. and we're into February 2023, a judge awarded the entirety of the $40,365.73 fund to the Children's Advocacy Center of the 3rd Judicial District, which aids abused children in Tennessee. So, I mean, it did go to a good cause, which I'm glad. So, kudos to that. And
Yeah, at
then,
least that.
yeah, I mean, at least that. And then February 4th of 2023, that was Summer's 7th birthday and the second birthday that had been celebrated since she has gone missing. Okay. So that is the timeline. That is the public timeline. That is the most factual timeline that I could find. Now, I went down a rabbit hole and I ended up somewhere way south of the Mississippi. And I was like, listen, I'm in the weeds. We got to get back on track. So I will to let y'all know that if you do get on the interwebs and start searching this up, it will happen to you as well. Disclaimer. But you'll find your way back. It's okay. So let's go then. Okay, so that's the timeline. They had searched that whole area, massive search. They had asked people, hey, please check your cameras. Let us check your cameras. So they did all that. Well, in doing so, and we kind of touched base on this in the first episode of this case, was a red Toyota Tacoma popped up, and people were like, "Oh, hello, who are you, and how can I help you?" Now, this area did have limited camera coverage. And, they were always, authorities were like, hey, please recheck your cameras, everything, trail cameras, all of that. Because the sheriff, Ronnie Lawson, said that something that may seem meaningless to a resident could mean everything to investigators. So, heck yeah, Ronnie, let's do the darn thing right there. Um, So, but one of the things is it just they don't really have very strong camera coverage out there, which, isn't, out of the norm. I'm in a very rural part. I would be surprised if anybody had cameras aside from us. But, you never know. Trail cams for sure though. So
Yep.
so
I'm over here
yeah.
laughing and I'm realizing that I'm not being recorded and I'm like, oh my gosh, Danielle. It's like I'm
Girl,
not
you're
even
fine.
responding.
You are
But I
fine.
am. Okay, back
You're
to you.
fine. No, you're fine. So back to this Toyota. So on June 26, 2021, the TBI asked, "Hey, we need your help identifying the driver of this vehicle." And he was seen in the area, or this person, excuse me, this not he, this vehicle, okay, was seen in the area of Beech Creek and Ben Hill Road in the late afternoon or early evening of either June 14th or June 15th. Now listen, which one was it? Y'all got it on camera. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, which one was it? What are we doing? Anyways,
Yeah, how do you not know if it's on camera? Is it not timestamped? Like, what?
either or and both.
Yeah,
You got
exactly.
to
Come on.
cover all your bases that way.
I
So,
guess.
I mean, I guess.
Ugh.
So, Lord have mercy. The truck was described as, so it's a 1998 to 2000s model Toyota Tacoma, which is a small truck. And it had a full bed ladder rack and white buckets in the bed. Okay. Um, Now, again, this they are viewing this sighting as a potential witness, not a suspect. And that's where a lot of this starts getting misconstrued is everybody's like they're looking for him and they want to find out who this is, him, her, whatever, she, they, and um they think they're guilty. No, that's not always the case. A lot of times they just want to talk to him and see if they saw anything that may have just been out of the normal. Um So yeah. So it's not officially a suspect vehicle, but a potential, witness lead. Okay. So are you ready? Aside from the red truck, that's really all we got. That's honestly really all we have. But there are suspects, and I'm telling you, I'm not laughing because this is funny, but I'm laughing because I'm perplexed by this
Yep.
whole ordeal.
Yep.
So, the suspects and persons of interest. Now, there has never been anybody that has been publicly named and or a suspect. But one of the things that me and Danny are both firm believers in is it is always good to know what you're dealing with. And what I mean behind that is who, what, where, when, and why. And I think it is more than fair to learn everything about the people that were closest to this person that is missing and or something has happened to. And essentially you have your list and you mark people off of it. Okay? And then once you're down through that list, you're like, "Okay, hey, everybody's cleared. Let's go on to the next possibility." Some people don't like that. Some people take it as a personal attack. I get it. I would. I'd be mad as old wet hen. I'd say, listen, I ain't done nothing to my babies. How dare you? But unfortunately, the reason they do that is because that happens. As sad as that is, it does happen. So, just like the Hawkins County Sheriff said, everybody's a person of interest until we find her, until we find Summer. And that statement is important because it does not mean that everyone is a suspect. It just means that they are keeping all possibilities open, which as they should. The TBI has also said they have not ruled out any possibilities either. But when specifically asked about Summer's parents, officials said they had not ruled out any possibility. And we'll just leave that there. Now, another thing, that always comes up every time I look at this case is people complaining about how hush hush, investigators